Hello.
How you doing? We are going to talk about the Lord's Prayer.
The Lord's Prayer, yeah.
Yeah, how important is prayer?
Prayer is so important. I think it's something that comes up a lot in like our youth, is that prayer is important to have a relationship with God.
Mm.
You know, like the less I talk to you, you know, it's a harder
We're not
relationship
connected.
to have.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
You know, if you're with your spouse, with your significant other, with your children, you know, the more time you spend getting to talk to them, the better relationship you have with them.
Yeah, communication,
really,
right?
Communication is key.
And that's what it is.
That's what it is, and that's what he wants.
That's right. He wants that from us.
Yeah.
So we decided to go with the Lord's Prayer because it was considered a model prayer that Jesus gave his disciples. And we're going to go into Matthew. I think Luke also does a small version of it.
So, yeah.
But just kind of an example. But the main prayer is in Matthew 6, 5 through 13. And probably maybe we ought to read that right off the bat. You know, the whole thing. You want to do that? Go ahead.
Yeah. All right, so Matthew 6, 5 through 13. And when you pray, you must not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and at the street corners, that they may be seen by others. Truly, I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And when you pray, do not heap up empty phrases as the Gentiles do, for they think that they will be heard for their many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask him.
Yeah, let's stop right there.
Yeah.
So we're going to just talk about 5 through 8 today. The actual prayer goes through some more verses.
Yes.
But we want to kind of give a little intro today because he's telling us how not to pray and how to pray in the whole, those verses.
And just that section.
And just that little spot. And the first part of it talks about whenever you pray, you must not be like hypocrites.
Yeah.
And so, I thought, okay, let me look that word up.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to really think what that word meant.
Yeah, because we use it a lot, but I don't think we all always know what it means.
Know what it means, I know. So, this is kind of it. They claim to be and have moral standards or beliefs, but then they don't show that.
Yeah.
They don't conform to that. I'm trying to think of a good example of that. If you're a Christian, you're supposed to be living that life, and then if you walk away from your church and then you don't live like that, you're doing things that would not be pleasing to God. That would be being a hypocrite.
Yes.
Right.
And of course, like, we're still sinful humans. We're gonna have those moments.
We have moments where we mess up.
But yeah, he's definitely talking about those people that are continually and decisively, saying that, I'm this wonderful person, and then going off and purposely doing those.
Yeah, because you're saying I do have morals, I do have standards,
but I'm not going to use them.
But then you go over and cheat a friend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's not, the behaviors are not matching what you're claiming to be.
Correct.
So it's so that is considered a hypocrite. So there were people that were praying that their life was not matching what they were saying.
Yeah.
And so because they love to pray, and this is what they say, they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by people. So
yeah, and something I brought up was like, it's fine to pray in public.
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
Do that, like we pray in church together and just bring us all together. But don't be praying so that people look at you and be like, wow, they're so amazing, and praising you. You should pray so that they can praise the Father.
Yeah, and there's people, I know, that have a beautiful way of saying prayers. Sometimes I feel like mine come out kind of, I don't know how to explain it, but I feel like they're not as eloquent as some people. Some people can really, truly pray, but it's those that are standing out and they're just wanting the accolades for it. And I'm sure at this time in life that there were those that were just out there praying, just wanting to get their rewards right there. And that's what they talk about. The rewards are not.
Yeah, they get their reward of people paying attention
to them. Yeah,
right there,
praising them. Yeah, because it goes on to say again. Mine says, and on truly I tell you, they have their reward.
Yeah.
So that's like giving things and then openly, sharing that I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did that. And you're not doing it for the purpose of just giving. You want to make sure everybody knows that you gave as well.
Yeah.
And so we lose our heavenly reward with that too, because you already got it, because people said, well, that's great, that's good, I'm glad you did that.
Buddy. Yeah, I'm so proud of you.
But we have, if you were to look, talking about the Jewish faith, and part of what they did, and part of what they consider their, they used the word, it was central to Jewish piety. Okay, so central to their allegiance, central to their devotion, their loyalty. This was central to how they lived their life, and that is praying, giving, and what was the third one? I lost my spot. Giving and praying, and there's one. Oh, fasting. Okay, and there was a verse that was in Acts that talks about a centurion and how he made sure that he gave. He gave charitable gifts. He also. What was the other word they used? I'm trying to find my spot now. But he did those things. He gave the charitable gifts. He prayed. Yeah. That was the thing he did.
Yeah.
And, people do that.
Yeah.
In general, they do that. But if we're not doing it in the right...
Yeah, the mindset and...
Right, exactly. And so that's what they were saying. Of course, we want to give. We want to pray. We want to... also, do things that are,
good
things, good things, right? But we have to have the right mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah. Indeed. Yeah. And so they also talked about, one of the things was talking about, what is the next part of that verse? It says, but when you pray, going and see at the bottom, it says, let me skip to the bottom. When you pray, don't babble like the Gentiles, since they imagine they'll be heard for the many words.
Yeah.
So when you think of that,
the Gentiles right now in that area would be like the Greeks. Anybody who's not
Romans,
a Jew,
Romans.
Greeks,
Yeah, it was in the Romans.
All that stuff.
And they prayed to gods.
Yes.
They did not pray to the one true God. They prayed to just gods in general. And so they constantly called out, repeated, and called out, and called out, and called out.
Yeah.
So, I think there are times when we call out to God.
Yeah.
And multiple times over the same issue, but we're not calling to have them. I don't know. It seems like when you're repeating a calling, you're calling the God calling. You're expecting them to show up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. To physically be.
Yeah. To respond. And this is what I know about God. I believe is that we have to get quiet sometimes. And you were saying something about that, weren't you?
Yeah. I was at a conference this past beginning of the week, and they were talking about how, about prayer and stuff like that. And a couple verses that came up was Psalms 5, verses 1 through 3, I think is a great example of what this means. Is give ear to my words, O Lord, consider my groaning. Give attention to the sound of my cry, my King and my God. For to you do I pray. O Lord, in the morning you hear my voice. In the morning I prepare a sacrifice for you, and watch. Mm-hmm. And like in other versions it says, watch patiently, wait patiently, or expectantly.
Expectantly.
And so we've been told we can ask, God. And we can ask God for anything, but we have to be still and be quiet afterwards and listen for his response.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that completely, wholeheartedly. So when you pray, don't babble like the Gentiles, since they imagine they will be heard for their many words. Don't be like them, because your Father knows the things you need before you ask them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the end of the sentence. You know, don't do all that. He knows what you need already. He wants us to recognize what we truly need, and we need that is in the will of God.
Yes.
Yeah.
Prayer is definitely a way to say to God, hey, I need this, and I'm willing to finally recognize that, you know, I need your help in this.
Yeah.
And now help me.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
But like it tells us like we should go into a room.
Yes.
And pray, because we're doing it for God. We're doing it for ourselves.
We're talking for Him. We're talking to Him.
Yeah.
So and that's what now if we go back up, I kind of went down and then back up, but in verse 6 it says, "But when you pray, go into your private room." Mine uses the word private room. Others say just room. Mm-hmm. Shut your door, and pray to the Father who is in secret.
And I think that's like it's not like, you know, He's the God of secrets or anything like
that.
Yeah. He is in secret because He is waiting for you to find Him. Yeah. And talk to Him. Yeah. And He is there in that quiet, in that secret place that, and He's in that, if you've asked Him into your heart, He's in that secret place in your heart that, you know, He knows that. He's there, like, waiting for you. Right.
And I did have something I wanted to read.
Oh, yes.
When you think of the word secret.
Yeah.
You know, it talks about, one of the definitions is it's unseen, hidden from human understanding. The Latin word hidden or set apart, concealed.
Okay.
Okay, so kind of like, it's not like it's this little hush-hush thing. It's more that it's just not revealed at that moment. Don't you think? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Not revealed?
Yeah.
But you were just talking about having to do with silence and listening. And this is a little prayer notes from Abbey Press. And I came across it yesterday, and I just thought it had it's kind of neat that you brought that up about what happened at the conference, about, you know, being silent or being still, watching and waiting. It says, to enter the depths of prayer is to enter into silence and look and listen. It is out of that silence that genuine prayers begins. Praise and thanksgiving and petition, movements of the heart that are all three addressed to the God who speaks to us in silence and moves us to prayer that issues from the within our deepest center. In other words, when we listen and look in silence, prayer rises naturally from within us. You know, it's like when you're quiet. Can I share a little something else while we're sitting here? When the first time I ever went into, we had a prayer room at the church I was at, and you would sign up for half hour or hour. I think it might have been hour lots, and because they did a 24 hour, so they would try to keep it, and they had a phone in there for people that would call in. And so the first time, I don't know if it was the first time I went in there, but one of the times I went in there, I was sitting in the chair. I mean, you know, you are literally going into your room and praying. And so it's completely silent. There's nothing going on around you. And so I was sitting in the chair, and I grabbed up a hymn book, you know, I thought, well, I'm going to, you know, kind of just, I don't sing, so I would, you know, I didn't have anybody else to listen. Only God was going to hear me. But all of a sudden, the thoughts of who I needed to pray for just started flowing, and it just came. And I was praying for this person and that cousin and for this situation and that, and it was just like blah 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 blah, and it was just coming. And by the time, I mean, I had tears flowing, truly, and it was like it was an experience that I couldn't believe that I could have had. Yeah. And it was a God thing. I know it was.
Oh, yeah.
I know it was a God thing. And actually, it almost scared me. That's how powerful it was. Because I remember going to my friend afterwards. I can't. I'm not going back there. But it was amazing. And I'm so thankful I had it, because it was like like it says here, it says, prayer rises naturally from within us, from that center that seems to be only silence, but is much more if we believe enough to open ourselves to the God of silence. Yes. God will speak to us if we learn to trust the silence in which God speaks without words, without our hearing, the way we hear the voices of other human beings. Yeah. And don't be afraid of the silence. Yeah. Don't be afraid to go into that closet, into that room, into that space that you have set aside that is quiet. Yes. And you can be quiet, yeah. Until he draws you to who you need to pray for and what you need to pray for. And there's things that you go in there in that closet to pray for, I don't know, that's...
No, and honestly, another thing from the conference, like, they were talking about, hurriedness and busyness is not from God. Yes, do things, for God and whatnot, but not so much so that you don't get to have those times to be quiet. Yeah. And just sit in his peace. And then there is where you can find God. And I think we're so afraid to have that silence. We always have to have a TV going, a music going. We always have thoughts in our heads constantly going,
rattling around.
Whether we want that to be there
around.
Or not.
Yeah.
But when we're able to push it all aside and just let that silence flow, he can fill us. Yeah. He can fill that silence.
Yeah, he can. And that's how he talks to us. He just, you can just feel his presence in the sense of that. Yeah. He tells us in this last part, but when you, I keep going back to when you give to the poor, something must be coming up in my head. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. Yes. So our rewards are not from earthly people, earthly things. They are from God. Yeah. And that's where we want our rewards, truly.
Those are the ones
much
that
better.
Won't rest
That's right.
and fall away. And...
That's right. They won't go anywhere. They won't be gone, be said today and gone tomorrow. I will say this. You should give compliments and appreciation to people. Yes. Absolutely, because people, that's part of what we need that's what we are for each other. We give encouragement. Mm-hmm. People need encouragement when they're doing something for God. Or have done something for God. They need that encouragement. Mm-hmm. So, yes, I think people need it, but not in the setting of that all you do is, praising somebody constantly, and maybe it's for no good reason. It's just because, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because we all need encouragement, and sometimes the best encouragement comes when those people don't. Well, obviously, like when they aren't seeking it,
Yeah. Yes.
And they're just doing it because they're people of integrity. Yeah. That are going to be serving the Lord, whether in front of 1 billion people or in front of a few or in front of no one. Yeah. If it's just them and this other person, they're in that heart posture of doing it for the Lord. Yeah. And it's great when people, compliment you on that, because
you need encouragement to keep on going, because I think God brings that sometimes to keep you going.
Yeah, if God puts it on your heart to talk to somebody and tell them, hey, you're doing great. Yeah. Do that.
Yeah, really.
Because even if you think it's a weird situation and you don't know them that well, it's yeah, they need it. They need it. Yeah. Well,
there's many times that I have thought, okay, well, our online study, I don't know if it's producing what we want. Is the objective that we had, going forth? Are we touching people's hearts? Are we, doing the things that we're supposed to do? Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden somebody would come up and say, oh, I saw this on whatever day and I really appreciated it, spoke to me or whatever. Yeah. And so then I'm like, okay, Lord, I get it. Okay, we'll keep going. And then I go along, and then you're like, okay, is it meeting the needs? Is it doing what we need it to do? And then all of a sudden somebody has something to say. Yeah. So God has been, it's a God thing. God confirms when we're doing what he asks us to do. Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that is a huge thing. When we are aligning to his will and doing what he's asked us. Yeah. He will see it through for you.
He'll guide you and direct you. You'll find the encouragement to do it. And so that's even with prayer. If God draws you to pray, you need to pray. Mm-hmm. that's very important. And one of the thoughts I had was that we're not trying to teach rote prayers. They talk about rote prayers, which means one, just like he said, not ones that are constantly calling out to God. And it may seem like you're learning something in like a repetition way. But you know what? How do we, Jesus provided that.
Oh, yes.
The Lord's Prayer, so that you would understand there are pieces and parts to it that you want to kind of get used to doing. And then at some point, it's going to just be natural.
Yes.
It'll come very naturally to you how to pray. Because
Yeah.
you know what? It's not something that you learn, but in a sense, it's something that you learn how to pray. You want to, if you didn't know that part of praying is praising Him for who He is, then you would never do it, right? You might not ever do it.
Yeah.
And part of praying is all kinds of little split off sections, and we're going to be talking about that next week, right?
Yeah. I'm super excited to just kind of break down the Lord's Prayer and just help people to understand, like, this is what Jesus had set forth for us to be able to learn and to effectively pray to Him. And but yeah, I'm super excited about that.
Yeah. So we're looking forward to the next 4 or 5 weeks, I think, to talk about the Lord's Prayer, break it down, provide guidance for you, and even to remind us on
sometimes
what
you do get to that point of like, I know how to pray, I'm doing good, and then you hit a lost moment, and sometimes you need that reminder that that going back to the basics, and then building back up, and there's no shame in that.
No.
No. We have the Bible, we have God here to rely on.
Yeah.
And that's what we got to do.
Yeah. Absolutely. So we're excited. We're going to do the Lord's Prayer in the next few weeks, and we look forward to sharing with you.
Bye.
See you later.